Hello! In this video I'm going to talk about derivations with biconditionals, rules, and a little bit of strategy. Fortunately, the rules and strategy are pretty straightforward. So, let's see what the rules are. So our first rule is this. It says if you have both conditionals going in both directions, you can infer the biconditional. And we call this rule CB because we're going from a conditional to a biconditional. Another rule we have is if you have the biconditional, then you can have the conditional going from left to right. And another rule we have is if you have the biconditional, you can have the conditional going from right to left. So we call the first rule CB. We call both of the second and the third rule BC. And if you want to specify which one, you can put in the L. That's just like the E and the I and with DN, you don't have to use it. And the L and the R with simplification. Again, you don't have to use it. But so basically, we're treating the biconditional like a special conjunction. It's a conjunction of conditionals. So if you have both of the conditionals, you can infer the conjunction of conditionals. And if you have the conjunction of conditionals, you can infer each of the conditionals. So it's basically just like it is just a special conjunction. And that's the rules. You'll need to memorize those, but I think you'll find those quite easy to memorize compared to some of the other rules you've had to learn. So strategy, how to use biconditionals. Well, if you have a biconditional P if and only if Q, then you apply BC to split the biconditional into both conditionals. And you really want to split it into both of them. So you want to get if P then Q, and you also want to get if Q then P. Sometimes you won't need both of them, but sometimes you will, and sometimes you don't know, you may need only one, but you don't know which one. So split them, apply BC, and get both of the conditionals, and then proceed. And maybe you'll have an extra line, but oh well, that's okay. And then once you have the conditionals, you want to use MP and or MT with them, and you'll see which ones you're going to use. What about getting a biconditional P if and only if Q? Well, in the simplest case, you would just you would have if P then Q and if Q then P, and then you'd apply CB. Now, sometimes you might be lucky and you'll already have both if P then Q and if Q then P, but sometimes you won't. Sometimes you'll have neither. Sometimes you'll have one but not the other. And so you'll have to ask, well, how am I going to get them? And it depends. You may be able to infer them, you may already have them, but you may have to do a subderivation of each one separately. So here's what that would look like. You would have, on your first line, you'd have show P if and only if Q, and then you'd do subderivations of each of the two conditionals. So at some point, maybe on line 2, maybe later, you'd say show if P then Q, and you'd do a subderivation. You'd assume P, and stuff would happen, and you'd get to Q, and you'd do CD. And then separately, you do show if Q then P, and you go ahead and do the subderivation. Once you get both of them, so you've completed the subderivation on line 2, and then you've separately completed the subderivation on line 7, you would apply CB, and that gives you the biconditional, and then you say direct derivation. So this is as involved as it will get, and most of the derivations you're going to be starting with will be simpler than this, but if this is, in general, if you're asked to show a biconditional, this is how it can get this involved. You would separately show each of the conditionals. Maybe you won't have to. And just to be clear, okay, in general, you cannot go from if P then Q to if Q then P. So however you get the one conditional, you're going to get the other conditional in a different way because they say different things. When we have the biconditional, we're saying two separate things, and they each have to be shown separately, and you're not going to go from one conditional to the other conditional. They're going to be shown separately. So don't try to do that. It won't work. Just get each conditional. So I'll be doing some example derivations with biconditionals in another video. I think you'll find that worthwhile. So check that out.